Thank you. Yeah. All right, here we go. And typically, this is another one of these funny topics that Ron's always asking me for topics, and I'm always saying, okay, what am I going to do? And I found myself really wondering about money one day. I'm sitting there looking at money, and it's laying there and saying, well, this is the most stupid thing I've ever seen. I mean, that you can take this thing and get a hamburger with it. And you think about how we are getting now, where we have credit cards and debit cards and Zoom cards and things, and we just walk by stuff now. We have to do is even walk by it. We don't even have to do anything. And we can buy stuff and do that. So I got to thinking, I mean, how did we get from a place? I mean, where are we now? And what the heck is money? What is money? And it turns out, that money is a made up thing. It doesn't exist. There is no, it's imaginary. And so I stumbled onto a book that is really kind of strange name of the book, Money, the True Story of a Made Up Thing. And I stumbled onto that book after I was about halfway through trying to figure out what I was going to put together in this. And so that made life a lot easier for me, because this is an economist who spent a whole half of his life trying to figure out what money is and how it works and all these kinds of things. So he's probably the primary reference that I use all throughout, but lots of other ones here. And how to think about money. This is kind of the format and the layout and the diagram of how we're going to approach this, and how did we get here to where we are today, to what we call money for ourselves here. And it starts in the Wayback Machine. How many people ever heard of the Wayback Machine? All right, a few people. And who used to ride the Wayback Machine? Oh, I can't remember. Anyways, cartoon when we were growing up, Tom Terrific and his Wonder Dog, the Mighty Manfred, and they would get in the Wayback. Well, we're going to get in the Wayback Machine to start this out and go way back to where things were, we call a barter system or a barter society. And then we're going to work our way forward historically all the way to now, in what was money and what is money, and how did it, what were the growing pains and what happened, and how did we get to where we are now, where we ended up with this. So that's kind of the overall outline of what we're going to do conceptually. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that we all probably learned this growing up, is that back in the olden days, there was no money. And so everything was barter. Well, there's no evidence anywhere in history or studying or thing that there ever was a society that relied on barter. Now, that kind of strikes us as impossible when we try to think back about that. When you think back, I think, how can there not be a society that's based on barter? And I think one of the reasons is because when there might have been one for 2 days, but then they figured out that doesn't work. You can't figure out how to trade a horse for a bushel of corn. It doesn't. So you have to have some other method of figuring out how to trade, how to get payment, how to get things, how to do it. You can't just trade stuff. That doesn't work. But I'll tell you an interesting thing, and here's the example. I'll kind of let you read that example where it says 1860 on the screen. And if you look at that, this is what happened. There's a traveling troupe of entertainers, song and dance team from France. And they were in the South Pacific performing in various islands. And they said, okay, you don't have money here, just bring us whatever you can to pay for the tickets. They had a really good turnout. And this is what they received: 3 pigs, 23 turkeys, 44 hens, 5,000 coconuts, And so now, can you imagine this dance troupe at the end of the day? They're back in their dressing room, and now what? You know, they got a thing out there with this pile of stuff, and what are they going to do with it? Well, if they had it in France, it was worth more than $4,000. The things, and that's a ton of money in 1860. $4,000 is a ton of money in 1860. They had $4,000 worth of stuff had they had it at the market in France, but they didn't. So when I got done reading this episode, there is no rest of the story like Paul Harvey. So I don't know what happened to the pigs and the coconuts and the things and what happened to the French troop. But it's an interesting idea why barter societies don't work and why you can't make them work. So what was more common at the time were IOUs. You give me that horse and I'll owe you a horse. Or between now and the time I pay you back, we will figure out what I have to give you in order to be equivalent to this horse that you're going to give me. But we're not doing it today because we can't figure this out. There's no common factor that says how much corn for a horse, how much oranges, how many coconuts. There wasn't anything. So then we got the first written money, the first time when it was written down, when there was actually an attempt to have some kind of money. Mesopotamia, 3000 BC. Same thing's happening in Egypt. You can find very similar records, almost the same time period. And what it is people who run warehouses are keeping records of the grain coming in and the grain going out and the money coming in and the money going out. And pretty soon they come up with a standard system. And the accountants devise a system in order to keep track of it. And so that the first written records of any kind, I'm talking any written records at all, are these, which are accounting records on how they are going to determine what stuff is worth in there. So what's money? Determining how much stuff is worth when we do that. Here's one that's awfully hard to spend. This thing's in the South Pacific Islands. This is a rye. Some of them weigh 3 tons. You know, the more difficult it is to load and move, the more valuable it is. So that's the thing. They people who were trying to devise systems of money figured out really soon it had to be portable. It's not much good having a 3-ton hunk of money. You can't, this doesn't work very well. So you have to figure out part of the thing that you have to have with money is it has to be transportable. So they went to other stuff. They went to some of these things that you see here. How many have heard of some of these things as money before? No? Yeah, some of them. Yeah. Salt. Yeah. What are a couple of those words, the things there at the end? Salary. Our word for salary comes from the word salt. Because the Roman soldiers, many of them were paid in salt, and that was their salary. And then the other one we use all the time, well, they're not worth their salt. That's a very common term you'd hear growing up, and that's the reason, because salt was money. Cowrie shells, all over the South Pacific and Polynesia, cowrie shells were money. And still are. You can still buy stuff with cowrie shells in the Polynesian islands. Solomon Islands, they used whale's teeth. Another thing something that money has to have is it has to be rare and people have to want it. It has to be desirable and it has to be rare. It has to have some kind of longevity. It has to be able to last over a period of time. And then we see the bottom one on here in ancient China, they used blocks of tea. And they'd grind up the tea leaves and things, press them into blocks, and they would last for years. And they developed. So these are some of the things that originally, back in the BCs, were used as money. Now, think how hard it is, though. You're trying to do a transactions. So here's what we're talking about. You have to be able to store the value over time. They got to be desirable, have to be dividable. So you can chop them up and do that. Both parties or all parties have to agree that they have value, or it's not money. You can't do it. And one of the biggest tests as you go forward from 3000 BC on is defining money is, can you pay your taxes with it? So if you're in ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, in those time period, Rome, money was defined as what it takes to pay your taxes. What's the thing that you can use? That's the money of the day. Now, we're talking here about 600 BC, we had the first coins developed. And this is the Lydians. They're right next door to Greece. I'm going to Greece here in a couple, 3 weeks, so I'll try to get some of these coins, see if they're still around there. But these things were developed, and they mined this stuff they called electrum, which was a combination of silver and gold, and they had a precise ratio, and it became standardized. So it became the value of the land, and the Lydians became super famous. These are some of the first coins ever minted in history. These are Lydian coins, the pictures of them there. And this is an interesting thing. Without the Lydian coins, Greece would not exist. The country of Greece would not exist today without these coins. And the reason behind, yeah, go ahead.
Those have various denominations.
They have one denomination. Yeah, they don't, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we come up. No, they don't come in denominations. They are one Lydian or whatever. They don't, not sure what the term they used for them was, but they didn't come in denominations. But the reason that Greece wouldn't have flourished and become the country it was is because when you have coins, when you have money, now you can have a wage-based economy. Now you can have people work. Now you can have merchants. Now you can have all these things that can flourish because this system of payment exists. It's because that exists, your economy exists. And I found that to be, I thought, pretty interesting tie-in. Now, here's part of the thing that Dick was talking about. Do they come in denominations? The answer is not typically for any of the countries. There was one coin. But what would people do? They would clip them with clippers or saw or chisel. And you see the shapes of these coins down there? They would hack off the edge of it a little bit, and they do that 100 times, and then melt that down, make a new coin. So now you got two coins where they're, you've just made yourself 20% by cutting the edge off the coins, called clipping. And so what did they do to counteract that? What do we have on our coins, on the ones that are a little more valuable than pennies and nickels? We have a reeded edge around the outside of the coin. Why is that? Can't clip it, because if you clip it, that reeded edge goes away, and it doesn't do that. So it's no longer a viable coin if it's been clipped. So that, even in the ancient times, they went to that. Of course, as in all cases, there are what? Counterfeiters and thieves and things. And so they're trying to make counterfeit coins that have nickel as the base instead of silver or gold in the things. And so you had to have a system designed to try to figure out whether this is a real coin or not. And then they could lose their credibility, as you see that. And that's because they'd wear out. They would just physically wear down, and now they're not worth as much anymore. So now we had coins. And if you remember that chart that's kind of on the left-hand side there, we went from the strict barter system, we went to commodities as money, tea, things like that, and metal, we've just gotten through coins, some things like that. So now we have metal money, and now we're going to talk about, okay, how do we get from metal money to paper money? And this is kind of how that happened. First of all, we had to have what? Paper. Yeah, because up until 105 AD, there was no such thing as paper. So before 105 AD, everything was coins or anything like that. And then we had to have next was printing. Had to have an ability to print. You could do it one at a time, you could do it by hand, but we had to have the ability to print. That didn't happen until 710. So all that length of time, the only coins of the realm were coins. But, pardon me? Shekels. Did they have shekels? Yeah, they had shekels. Of course they did. What were shekels? Coins. Yeah, coins, silver coins based on, and all of these coins, and I didn't pay much attention to the exact weights, but they all had a specified weight. They had to weigh this much, and that's how they could tell whether they were real coins or not. So a combination of the size and the weights. The very first paper money is that on the right-hand side of the slide there was in China, about 710. It's called a jiaozi and things. And the key thing about this is you look at the top of that piece of paper and see what's up there. What's printed at the top of the piece? Pictures of coins. Those are pictures of coins. And so this piece of paper is a receipt that the person, the vendor, the banker has given you for that number of coins. So on here, you can see there's 10 coins. So this piece of paper is now worth 10 coins, but it's totally standardized. So you can give it, I can give it to Jan, and it's 10 coins. And now she's got 10 coins. If she wants the 10 coins, she can go to the original vendor, hand this over, get her 10 coins back, or now her 10 coins, okay? So that's called reserve money. That's money where you have something, but behind it is the real value. In this case, they were mostly copper coins, sometimes iron coins, but they were coins, and actual coins existed to back this up. So then what happens? Counterfeit money, as always. And so how do you counterfeit? In these days, they did it a little more stringently than we did. If you counterfeit money, they kill you. Yeah, oh yeah, death penalty. Counterfeit money, boom. No more counterfeiting, no more counterfeiting. And then what's the second thing you do? The government prints the money. Okay, these are individual bankers, individual things, stuff like that. So these are reserve banking pictures on the top. You can actually go get. Now, what's another thing that happens though? Oh my God, we had a hurricane. I want my coins because I don't trust this paper money anymore. So we all run to the bank. Each one of us has one of these things that's good for 10 coins, but how many coins does a banker have? Half the number he needs because he's a greedy Jose. So he's putting out paper that there's not really any coins there to back it up, even though they're supposed to be. Government finds that out, what do? No more banker if he had done that or does other things. But that's happened all throughout history now with the advent of paper money and the advent of reserve banking. Reserve things, there's always been runs on the banks, and they've always failed because they're always greedy and they issue more money than they have reserves to back it up. So this is what happens here. However, what happens when you have lots of money in circulation?
It goes about, yeah.
Yeah, no, not really. No, it actually goes up. Why? Because you can now pay this butcher for that meat you couldn't pay before. You can now pay the shoemaker for the shoes and you couldn't pay before. And so what the banks have done is created value in the economy because they've allowed the economy to flourish and go and put more stuff out into the world. And so the world is what? A better place until what happens? A hurricane, a disaster, and there's a panic, and people lose trust in the money, and they run on the banks. So that's kind of what the issue is here. Yes, actually, we're going to get there eventually. We're in like 529 right now, so we got a little ways to go, but where we're at right now is about the 1400s. Remember, we were talking about reserve money and the money had pictures of coins on it or pictures of the valuable thing. And then everybody figured out, this is too hard. So they just did what? Printed money with nothing behind it. That's called fiat money, F-I-A-T, fiat money. We're going to get into that a little more. But now you have money that's printed out there that has nothing of value behind it, except the promise of the government to make this money good. So did that go over really well? No, not initially. No, because they didn't trust, this is Mongol, Kublai Khan. They didn't really trust the government, so what did Kublai Khan say? Use the money or I'll kill you. Okay, so now what happens in the economic system? People start to use the money. After 10 years, it's money. Because it lasted for 10 years, they now have the confidence, it's got this sustainability, people accept it, people agree that this is money, I'll take it, you'll take it. Took 10 years, boom, he had money. He had real money. No more panic, no more things. That doesn't mean that there are not more runs, not more things. And what happens always is you have some bright new economist that thinks there's a better way. They come in and the old money disappears. And that happened in China and things. They had a new government take over and they thought that this money is a horrible thing. We should go back to being farmers and back to being barterers. That's the real why. So they did away with all the money in China. And what happened? They regressed 300 years worth of development. That was the Chinese Dark Ages. Almost the same time period as the Dark Ages in Europe, and it was caused by that one single act of doing away with the money. So we're in the 1400s. We've got this money now that has come out, fiat money. The banks are issuing it. It has nothing behind it, absolutely zero. It's just made up stuff. The problem is you got 90,000 banks making it up. So if you'd go out on the street, you could probably in the market in London see 15 different kinds of currency in the market. Is that a good thing? No, because now you really don't have money. It's not viable, not do the thing. So this guy's really famous. He's kind of a crook and a really smart guy at the time, John Law. He became one of the richest men in the world and lost everything at the end. He was like what we would call a trillionaire at one time. And he was a phenomenal mind when it had to do with money and economics. And he convinced two different countries over a 10-year period in between, France and England, to let him run their entire monetary system, the whole thing. He designed the money, he printed it, he controlled the banks, he made the laws, he did everything. And they thrived until everybody got greedy and they lost trust in the currency and they almost hung him in France. So he moved to England, had a 5-year recuperation. Boom, he did the same thing in England, became the guy. Bank of England, John Law. He's the guy that developed the Bank of England and central banking, John Law. Of course, who's the guy that's got his hand in the central bank? John Law. So John Law became the richest guy in the world. The thing that caused this to thrive is what they call fractional reserve banking. And so we're trying to get back now to having some kind of value backing up the money. At this point, they say, well, you really only have to have 50% of the value. So you're allowed to issue 200% of the amount of money that you have the gold stores for, that you have the silver stores for, that you have the coins for. You can issue 200% of that, but no more. And this is an attempt to control this hyperinflation over things where people, when you have a run, there's nothing to back it up. What happened? Same thing that happened in 1929. We're going to talk about that. It had war. It happened to be war. Happened to be wars at this particular time. Had a war. They lost confidence. Boom, all the money tanked. All the money tanked. Why? Because people lost confidence in the money. They no longer trusted the money. So what is money? We're going to hear this now 5 more times. What is money? Trust. It's 100% trust that whatever you have, whatever this thing is, you trust that to be worth something today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. You trust that. If you lose the trust, there goes the money out there. He created a system that creates money. And that's kind of the diagram at the bottom of this slide in the black and white. But really, the key takeaway from this is you can have money in 3 places at the same time. You can have a borrower with money, a lender with money, and a separate bank with the money. It's all the same money. It's just one number on a book that's been moved around. So now you've got that $1 in gold that you have in 3 different places at the same time. That's the system we have today, minus a few things. So kind of interesting. This is what we were just talking about. It's all about the trust. But what happens is the interests of the government, the banks, the people, the lenders, the borrowers are all different. So there's always this conflict going on between those parties, and nobody's ever satisfied with the interest rates and the economy and inflation and things. There's some people happy and some people sad going on about this. So what happened here? How did we make things a little bit better? There's 2 guys that work together here, Blaise Pascal and Rene Fumant. Has anybody heard of those 2 guys? Oh, well, very famous guys, especially Blaise Pascal. He just about invented algebra. He's really an amazing guy. And what they got together, the 2, is they figured out there is this, because they were both heavy-duty gamblers. They liked to gamble a lot. And believe it or not, when they lived in the 1600s, nobody yet had ever come up with an idea that there is such a thing called probability. That whole idea did not exist, that there is a thing called probability. These 2 guys got together and says, how can we win at dice? And both mathematicians, so they figured it out. They figured out the probabilities and got rich because they knew and other people didn't. So what does probability allow you to do? Forecast the future. It allows you to forecast the future. So that changed everything. And now we've got some examples here. Weather reports now. 70% chance of rain tomorrow. What's that? Probability. That's probability. You know, all these things that impact our life, anywhere you want to look, medicine, in the weather, stock market, shopping, advertise, sports events. Probability is there. We don't even notice it anymore. It's become so ingrained in our thinking. This little box at the lower left, does anybody in here use that system? I'll give you a hint. Yes, every one of you. Every single one of you, when you make a decision, that's the matrix that you're thinking about when you make it. You look at a thing and you say, whoa, I can use this little bit amount of money. I can make a lot, but the risk is horrible. Or I could get killed if I tried to do that. It's extremely high risk, but high payback. Then you have low probability, low impact. Who are those? Those are the people who have entire 100% of their money in a checking account, and they're actually paying the bank to keep their money, right? That's a group of people because they're risk averse. They don't like the probability of what the thing's going to do. So they're in that upper left, low probability, small impact. They feel really safe. There's another whole group of people. What we're all looking for, where we want to be, is in the lower right. High probability of success, high impact. We're all looking for the good deal out there. That's what we're all searching for. So we all, whether we know it or not, all the decisions we make, we're living in that little matrix. So what finance had come to do was trying to match people up who had money now, and they were willing to give some of it up to get more money in the future. That's this decision. And then you had people that didn't have any money now that needed it in order to try to get their idea, and they're willing to pay you back more money in the future. And that's our system. That's our finance system now. And the whole thing is designed to match these two people up. What's the stock market? It's one big mess of that. People who have money now, they're betting on the future. Businesses want to take your money and they want to pay you back later. The whole system is designed around that concept. Now, here's what did happen, though. In the Dutch East India Company, how many people heard of them? Yeah, they was really famous, especially around the southern coast of Africa and that whole thing. And the biggest thing they did is they came up with the stock certificate. You could buy shares of the Dutch East India Company in 1602. And they would give, and then you got what? Share of the profits. So you bought a share of them. They sent 16 ships out, 14 of them came back. You got rich. They sent 16 ships out, 2 came back, lost all your money. They lost all your money. But they invented sharing, stock certificates. And so everything changed after that. Now we have a whole new kind of money out there, stocks. A whole new kind of money. So people are all over that. This is an old Standard Oil stock certificate on there in the lower right from the 1800s. If you had one of those now, you wouldn't be here listening to me in this room. If you had just one of those stock certificates issued in 1882 by Standard Oil, probably $100 million if you had one. Still valid. This bank in the upper left was the oldest bank. And now this is how new banks are. And I think, 1472 to me is pretty new in this. So we've been working since 3000 BC. We're up to 1472. And now we have some of the first banks that are in existence in this time, as we know them, operating as we know a bank to operate. And that bank in Siena, Italy, is still in business, been in business since 1472. And now we have this whole list of banks, all different kinds up there, that we have that service very specific needs with people. And in the lower left there, that's supposed to give us an idea of what banks did when they first started and what they're designed to do. So they secure our money. They will give us money. We can write a check. Now, we didn't talk about checks yet. Are checks money? If I want to buy your car, will you give it to me for a check? Well, don't consider me, but a person who had any money and they gave you a check would, so is that money? Yeah. Yeah, it's money because you're willing to sell, you're willing to give them something for this piece of paper. What it really is an IOU. Now, remember way back when we started with barter, what was the very next thing that came? IOUs. Well, that's really what a check is. Check is really an IOU, but we don't think about that. That's not how we think about it. We think about it as money. Okay, here, boom, I'm done. I paid, I'm finished, right? That's what we think. And when we hand that check over and we get the sewing machine, that's the end. Well, it's not the end, but we think of it as money. They give you interest. And now we have this other thing we're going to talk about in a little while, these little plastic cards. And we're going to talk about those too. What happened was, though, and you see in this lower part here, because these banks were continually blowing up, over issuing, not having reserves, having poor lending practices, what did that require? A central bank. So every country out there that has a banking system has what? A central bank. And these are the things that in those blue circles around the outside here, those are the things that that central bank does to keep the banking system healthy so it doesn't collapse on itself. And they are the lender of last resort in every government in every country. What does that mean? What can the central bank do that nobody else can do in the United States? Print money. Thank you, Dick. Yeah, they can print money. So if things are really, really bad, what do? Print money. Okay. Is that a bad thing? Yeah, some people shake their head yes, some people shake their head no. Go ahead.
Government at all, does it?
The question is, does the central bank have anything to do with the government? Yes, it has to do with the government, but no, it's not under the direct control of any part of the government. It's under its own control. So the people that run it are appointed and put in place by people in government, but nobody inside the government has a finger on their buttons. Nobody gets to tell them what to do. They make their own decisions. So we trust them and that group of people to make the right decisions for our country. Why is that designed that way for a central bank?
They decide what interest.
Yes, they're the ones that set the interest rates for the other banks. They set the interest rates for all the other banks, then the banks set the interest rates for us. Okay, so we're a couple down the food chain interest rate wise from the central bank. They don't set our interest rates. They set the interest rates that banks have to pay. So therefore, in order to be profitable, the banks have to charge a little more than that in order to make money. But why is the central bank not part of the government? Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
We're hoping central banks make some fiscal decisions sometimes instead of some political decisions.
Yeah, the response was sometimes banks should be. We're kind of trusting the central bank to make decisions based on the physical or the monetary policy, not on a political basis. That's what we're trusting them to do. So go ahead. Off the profits they make. No, they sell the bonds. Yeah, they sell the, you know, you have to create money somehow.
Create money, give the bonds, and charge interest on bonds. That interest has created money.
Yeah, where does all the money go in the bank? Pardon me, John? Pardon me?
I'm saying I understand that they create the money, they loan to the banks, or they go sell buy government bonds. They charge interest, whatever they create it, and they collect all this money on the spending money, which has got to be a huge amount of money. Look at that.
It's a lot of money. Yeah,
that's got to be a lot of interest.
it is a lot of interest. So where is the interest? All right, this is a really good question because we're talking, and this not only applies to the central bank, it applies to your bank and my bank and the bank's banks and every other bank in the world. Where does the interest go? So where does our interest go that we get? When we get interest, where does it go? Into our account, which is really what? A couple of digits in a hard drive somewhere. So we get a tick up in so where does the money go central bank gets? It goes into a little account and it ticks up their accounts. And so what they're looking at, I don't want to get into a course on macroeconomics here, but anybody here ever take macroeconomics? Jan has. Yeah, back here, what's macroeconomics? Big scale, big thing, the countrywide, something, not business, the whole thing. There's two kinds of money, M1 and M2. Yeah, that you learn about in there. And what are you doing? You're creating money and you control what? The money supply. So that what you're talking about, that money goes into a little digital warehouse that is part of the M1, the money supply that they can then use the central to fund all the other programs out there that are spending money. Okay.
They create money,
Yep.
create the money supply,
Yep.
and they can buy bonds with that money,
Yep.
and they charge interest on the bond.
Right.
And you look at billions, like trillions of dollars.
Yep. And that's their whole intent.
And that's not interest on it.
Yep.
So they could be bubbling over in money.
No, because why are they not bubbling? The question is, if they're making all this money selling bonds, getting the interest, doing the things, and it's in the trillions of dollars, why don't they have a ton of money? Why do they not have a ton of money? Do they spend money? No. Who spends money? Congress. No, not the government. Congress. Congress spends money. How much money does Congress spend? More or less than the central bank is making? More. So the central bank is doing these things to try to get enough money to fund the government spending being done over here. But they have no way to control that. They, the central bank, they can't say, boy, slow down over here. You know, I can't create money fast enough. So then that creates what? National debt. Yes. So that's how, you know, that's a 5-minute course in macroeconomics. And that's how we get things. So they're creating money as fast as they can. Not as fast as those idiots can spend it. Okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to call them idiots, but they are, because how many of us wildly overspend the money we have every week? No, we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't be sitting in here, right? No, heavens no, we wouldn't be sitting in here. So it's just, you know, I don't want to go down that path, but it bothers me that we do that we spend so much more money. But that's how it works, because these guys' job is to make the money, help make the money. They're not the only ones, but their job is to help make the money. There's other people out there whose job they think is to spend the money, and those two levels don't match on the thing. But anyway, if you look at that list of things, so in the dark blue, that's the thing. Now, what happens though, and let me see what my next slide is. I don't want to get ahead of what am I doing here? Oh no, we'll go here first, and then I'll talk about my thought that I just said. How many people have heard the term Luddites? Well, you should, because we all are them. Okay, what happens to, who are people that don't like the new technology changes? Luddites. That's the term that people use. So if people who drag their feet, getting into new systems, new technology changes, do things that I'm being facetious here. You guys know me, I'm being facetious, but that is a derogatory term used to describe people who will not accept a change in technology. And it came from where? From here. Here's your idea where it came from, 1811, 1816. What happened back then? Industrial revolution, steam power. All these things actually took off in England to start off with. That's where they're from, the Luddites. And who were they? They were the people who did all the work before the machines. So once these factories installed the machines, what happened to them? Lost their jobs. Were they qualified to run the machines? No, weren't doing that. So they got mad, grabbed their sledgehammers, went out and destroyed factory after factory after factory, because they said, you can't do this. You're taking our jobs, our whole livelihood. Pardon me?
What's happening at the ports.
Okay, there's a comment said that's what's happening at the ports. In a way, what's one of the biggest complaints the port workers have? Modernization, technological modernization causing a loss of jobs. Modernization, though, is the main thing. And a lot of it is robotics. Robotics thing. That is the dilemma. And it's actually that's a good example of what's happening right now. Who always wins? Technology, yes. Technology and change. Always, always, always. There has never, ever been a case when technology doesn't win. But it always wins what? Here, look at the italicized, easy for me to say, term in there. In the long run. That's when it wins. In the long run. So what happens in the short run? Yeah, disruption, people suffer, there's pain, there's things, there's reorganizations of people's whole lives happen in there. And it happens over a period of years, not months, days, and things, over a period of years. And so this is the same way that the technology and the things of money comes in and enters into this whole thing. And how this all happens, the money supply in the world, see the white diagram on this slide. More stuff, more people, more money. Look at the shape of those curves. And then look at some of the year blocks down at the bottom there. How did those curves go like this? Money and people, how did they go like that? What caused them to go like that?
Want.
Yeah. Yeah. And technology? Yeah. I got another slide here coming up to show you just about exactly why this happened on the things. And you can produce what? 10 times more. 10 times more with one person. So then the price of that thing you're producing does what? Goes down. So what? More people can afford it. So they want that. So they work harder. And we have that slope. So that whole slope there is technology, industrial revolution onwards. And probably the most important thing is right here. The light bulb. It's a light bulb moment. Old Thomas E. there. Multi-millionaire Thomas E. Okay, because he got patents on these things. Why light bulbs? Why is that the thing?
Work longer hours.
Yeah. Who said that? Yeah. The question, why light bulbs? Because you can work longer hours and live longer hours, live more, have more free time, be able to do other things. It essentially more than doubled the output in the day. And this is, you look at this slide here that's on the bottom left, and that tells you how many hours you have to work to get an hour of light. And in a reverse thing, so if you look at like 1950, you could work all day and you get 1 million lumens of light. Now that I put I added the LEDs, because LEDs, when they came in, if I was to put the correct size of that little inserted thing, it goes all the way to the top of the slide. That's how big an impact LEDs have. Why? Africa, South America, places that don't have electrical systems, don't have things, they can now use LEDs, and boom, they're into a 12-hour, 14-hour day versus being totally having to be going with whatever the sunlight will provide. So the cost of light drove everything, drove all these lines like this. And you see the second chart there, productivity versus hours worked. It says that the average hours worked is 30-something, 38.2. And then the productivity crosses. So at about 1980, we started just walking away productivity-wise, output per hour work. And it keeps going up and up. Why? Technology. And then we had these two guys. Anybody heard of David Hume and Adam? Anybody heard of Adam Smith? Okay, a couple of economists in here. Wealth of Nations, that's Adam Smith. He wrote this thing. It's still a required reading textbook in every economics class ever known to man. If you're in college, I will guarantee you have to read Wealth of Nations, written by Adam Smith. Well, his whole thing, why are we talking about him? They were big on the gold standard. Again, they want to go back to this system to reserve banking. They want to have gold for every dollar bill that's out there. They think that's the only safe way to make sure your currency works. And they are super, super smart, these two guys. So they had all kinds of things. So we had what happened? Who said 1929 a while ago? 1929 was what? Loss of confidence, loss of trust in the system. The whole financial system collapsed at the time. Okay. And so what came out of it? The gold standard. The gold standard. So in 1933, you may not be able to read that on the slide, but all US citizens had to give up all their gold. They had to turn it in. Because all the money now was going to be backed by gold. And we established what place to hold our gold. Fort Knox. There's 7 more too, but everybody knows about Fort Knox. Okay, we're going to talk 147 million ounces of gold in Fort Knox. And we were on the gold standard. We now had a reserve currency. Was that a good thing? For a while. And then what happened? More money, more money, more money, greed, more money. And then what happens? Now you have what? Not even a tenth of the amount of gold that you need if there is any kind of run. You can't really. So then what happens to faith in the currency? In the hopper. In the hopper. So in 1971, on this chart, 1971, Richard Nixon, our favorite president, he created fiat money. And we're going to talk about that. This is what we have now, as does every other, I'm not going to say every country, but every other advanced country in the earth has fiat money. It's the only kind of money out there, and nobody has reserve currency. Nobody out there. Because you run on the banks, and your banks get hosed. So then you have to do what? You have to keep the confidence of the people in the money. So the government has to be 100% behind it. That has no intrinsic worth. And this is why money is made up. That dollar bill is not worth anything. Zero. And it's worn out. But as long as we have some kind of faith we can spend it, it still gives it value. And it derives its value from the fact that the government backs it 100%. They will guarantee that. And it's really, really good that they can print money. Now, as we go along closer and closer to now, we run into a new thing. Somebody has this great idea about another new kind of money. How many people have or now own mutual funds? Yeah, probably most people at some time or the other, if they do not now, owned mutual funds. What was the good thing about mutual funds? Yeah, you got best spread out. You could buy big shares. If you could never afford to buy a share in a stock that's $30,000 a share, but through a mutual fund you can. And you can get into all these money markets. And so you spread your risk among large money of people, a bunch of people. And it's you choose your kind of mode. There's all kinds of different operating systems that you can choose to do now. But can you write a check on a money market fund? Most of the time you could. Yeah. People treated money market funds like banks. Were they banks? No. Did they have any reserves? No. Did they have anything? No. But people in their head equated money market funds to banks, and so they allowed banks to issue checks and write checks and do things. Did it cause any real problems? No, some with the most crooked, but it wasn't widespread. It wasn't things because why? People trusted them. They said, okay, it's a big fund. That's the thing. This is good. This is like a normal check. So now we got a new kind of money. You can write a check on your bank. You can write a check on your mutual fund. And money market funds, same way. People treat them exactly like money. Are they money? No, there's no money there in your thing. Boy, we're getting real close to home now. We're getting real close to home. Plastic money. Do we consider credit cards as money? Yeah, because you walk up and you do what? Beep. That's it. That's all it takes, right? Beep. We're going to talk a little more about that beep in a minute, but that's all it takes. So is that money? In our mind, that's money. Because stays in our pocket, doesn't disintegrate, does the thing. Almost everybody in the world will take it. And it's for us, is it instantaneous? Yeah. Boom, we do that. And is it exactly like we had given them $100? To us, it's exactly like we had given them a $100 bill. We can't sense any difference in our life. It's exactly the same. Is that what happened? No, there's a lot of crap going on here now behind the scenes, okay? A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But from the users, from all of us, that's money. Because that we can treat that exactly like a $100 bill. It's every bit as valuable to us and every bit as prompt and as instantaneous as a $100 bill. Whew, that's kind of scary. And now we're in really close to home. Digital money. Now, a credit card has what? Width and depth and things, and you can touch it and do things, and so does money. How about digital money? What do you do with it? Beep. Yeah, it's got the same beep as your card, right? Beep. Beep. Can you touch it? No. Does it exist anywhere? No. Maybe. You'll never catch it, though. It's moving real fast between a whole bunch of electronic accounts on things out there. It's 100% electrons, 100% little digits in a drive somewhere that are moving all the time. How do the people that take your money, how do they make money? First of all, they charge you a little bit for letting you hear the beep. But then they spend that money. They invest that money. And then what do those people do with that money? So that's high-speed money out there. You hit beep, and it's probably not in that hard drive you sent it for who knows how many seconds. And boom, it's on the way somewhere else. And that's the scenario we live in today, electronic money. Now, this thing in the lower right, I'm going to talk about it in a minute, NFC. But let's talk about these things. How many people use PayPal? Okay, it's really safe. Yes, so really safe. So, you know, they get a really bad rap. If you're not stupid, PayPal is a wonderful thing.
But people do get hacked with PayPal.
They do because they give it away. If you're not, nobody that I know of has hacked PayPal. They hack you.
Not PayPal.
No, they hack you because you gave them your account information.
And PayPal will.
And they'll give it back. If it's a hack, even 80% of the cases, if you're stupid, they will give you the money back. Sometimes, 80%, they give the money back. But what happens is we all are not careful enough now that we're in this digital money. We're in digital money. And everything, all of our money, whether we know it or not, is roaming around out there in those electrons. But the people protecting that electrically are doing a really good job. It is really hard to get into their systems. Really hard. They are really good at what they do. We are not. We have a tendency to click on the wrong things. We have a tendency to give people the wrong information on the phone. We have a tendency to do things that causes these doors to these places to open. All right? That's what the hacks are. The hacks are not of them. They don't get hacked. You're not getting into them. That's not happening. Can they get into us? You bet. happens, and we read about it. Hopefully we're reading about it and we're not experiencing it. But we read about it every day, every day, every day, every day. And what is the common denominator every time? I gave them my social security number. I gave them my, it's always that. And those people who are criminals, and they are really good at what they do. They are really, really good at what they do, which needs us to be really, really vigilant out here. But PayPal is the most safe thing out there of any of these systems that we're talking about. Venmo, anybody heard of Venmo and Zelle? Yes, they are safer. They are statistically, by far, by long ways, the safest one out there. PayPal. Yeah, they are really, really safe. As long as we don't screw up, as long as we're careful, they are really, really safe. I use PayPal almost solely when I travel because I got a PayPal debit card. I load as much money as I'm willing to lose because when I insert that PayPal debit card into a debit machine, it's not PayPal's fault if that debit machine goes into their banking system and does something with it that PayPal can't control. Now, they'll still give you, as Jan is saying, most likely they'll give you your money back if that's the case that's happened on things. But I like them because I can put $5,000 in there and go to any ATM anywhere in the world and get money out. And the only thing I have at risk is $5,000. If you put your debit card in from Bank of America in that thing, how much do you have at risk? Everything that's in that bank account. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get it back. There's always that whole scenario, but you are putting at risk everything that's in that bank account if you use that debit card. Pardon me?
You put money in that PayPal, like, let's say you go to Canada, their money's not worth as much, so it adjusts as.
Yes. The question was if you use PayPal or you can use any other ATM card in Canada, because the exchange rate is different, it automatically adjusts. That's true, but there's almost always a transaction fee of whenever you're taking money out of an ATM that's not your local ATM.
Like, you got euros.
Okay, the question also is you go to a country that's got euros. I have used my ATM card in Angola, Luanda, Angola. It was hard, but I got the job done, and I probably used it. And I just went to a year ago now, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, that whole place up in there, and I use it in every country. And they're euros. They're euros. So yeah, the answer is yes. You have to do enough. You have to do enough research to know what that ATM is doing to you. It's not PayPal that's doing things to you. It's all in their documentation. They tell you how much they're going to charge you. $3. They're going to charge you a $3 fee to use their card in an ATM. No matter what, no matter how much money you get out, you get $10 out, you're paying $3. So with PayPal, what you don't know is how much that ATM system is charging you and what they're doing. So you kind of, had to be a little bit careful and read the things that come up before you say, okay, I'm willing to give you $15 to do this, because
It's only going to.
yeah, and there are other cards. I have cards that they don't charge me anything for a thing, but they've also, their system have shut me down. I've gone to Guatemala twice to teach English, and two years in a row, I went in with the card to get money in Guatemala, and it locked me out of their system because the bank refused the card. My bank, First Federal, refused. And I wrote them a letter before I left the second year and said, look, do not refuse this the first time I put this in, because I know what they do, refuse it, boom, I'm out for 6 months. That's the rules in Guatemala. If they refuse your card, that card's no good for 6 months. Doesn't matter that they recused it, because they just want to make sure it's you. If you text them, they'll clear it right away. Too bad. You're already locked out. Well, I mean, that happens in these countries, you know. So what you don't want to, and that's why I go into PayPal. I just was on the phone with them this morning for a trip. You have to do it on the phone with them. With some other places, cards, you can do it online. With them, you have to talk to a person. You go online with them or on the phone with them and you say, I'm going here, here, and here. These dates, do not refuse my card unless I tell you to. They say, got it. And I've never had them refuse my card in any of those places. And then you can put, and you can add it too. See, if you can put 2,000 in, and then you can just add it electronically out of your account into PayPal on the move, on your phone. Put more money into your PayPal account. So, yeah, kind of. Yeah. But anyway, we don't want to have a PayPal lesson here either. So, all right, here we go. This is near field communication. And this is the beep. So this is this is where we're going. This is where we're at. It's all, trust me, it's all gonna be beeps. It's all gonna be beeps. Now, maybe not, we may not have to worry about that because we're in the near term. We're not in the long term. You know? I don't think there's very many of us in this room that are in this for the long term. But it's coming. It's coming. So these are all things. Now, here's one thing. Where is it? It's not on here. Anybody heard of RIFDs? Okay, a couple, three people. These are little tags you can put on stuff and you can track them. That's the reason to be designed. But they have RIFD readers. Well, there's a big scare out there that people with RIFD readers could walk by in the airport and beep, scan your cards. Do the things. Can they do that? No, you can't do that. You can't do that because you have to be within 2 inches of the card to be able to scan it. It doesn't matter how good your piece of equipment is, it won't work.
My daughter got scanned something. They were reading something out of in her room.
They can do that if they walk right up next to you.
A stopping line.
She is probably standing there and somebody's standing next to her and puts their reader right up next to her purse. If they can get it within 2 inches, then there's a chance. So then like this, I probably came, because these are pickpocket proof pants. Did you know that? Yeah, I have probably 2 pairs of jeans and 2 pairs of pants that if I do, it takes 2 zippers to get into this pocket. You know, it's got an internal zipper and then the outside zipper. And then these are not my secure ones. My real ones they've got a passport pocket with 3 zippers. Every pocket you have has zippers and buttons and things. Well, you wear those things in places like, if you're going to go to Paris, to Notre Dame, not anymore because of the thing, but you're walking around and there are groups of people working on you, things, and they're bumping into you and doing things. I mean, they work in teams and they're going to get you. Not if you have these things, because they take one little look at that and say, greener pastures, not doing this. This is too hard. So I have those when I'm going to a big city where I'm going to be in a line or I'm going to be crushed in the train, riding the subway, and I'm riding in any big city, in New York or Chicago, anywhere where you're riding the subway or you're riding the train and you're in this. This is an RIFD wallet. Can't read them. Anything that's inside here, they can't read because there's a thin metallic layer inside the leather and they can't read it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes to defeat now that's an extra step, but they can't read anything. So if you have cards and things like that, spend the extra $2 and get an RIFD wallet or credit card protector or stuff like that. Where's all this going? Oh.
They have back to change all that stuff.
Is it? Oh man, I hate to get into the attractive adjective. I'm not sure if I'm qualified to comment on whether they are attractive. Do they have genes? Yes. Are they attractive? You'd have to make up your own mind. about that. But they do have travel clothing. They have shirts with the same thing, so you can take a credit card and put it in, one pocket for a credit card, and things like that. So, and these are called Aviator jeans. That's the company name, and I can't remember the company name that makes the really super duper pants. But oh, come on! Don't be asking hard questions. Remote. Yeah, there you go. Did you hear that? Yeah, radio frequency ID. And it's primarily used for tracking stuff, but there was a big worry that they could scan your cards just by walking near you, and that's not true. They do have to be inside of 2 inches, and if you have actually, if it's inside your purse, they shouldn't have been able to do it. So something else going on, because inside your purse, that's enough. If it's even if it's a leather purse, they can't do it. It will not read through a leather purse at all. You don't. If you've got your stuff inside a leather purse, it won't read it. You can't do it. Yeah. So here we are. I just threw this in there. There's about 1 million of these out there now. Cryptocurrencies and other kinds of fake currencies. This is a cryptocurrency. It's called Bitcoin. Anybody heard of Bitcoin? Yeah, it's in the news a lot, right? In the news a lot. And the biggest thing about Bitcoin, there's two big. The big thing about Bitcoin and AI, which I'm going to do another talk thanks to Ron, coming up in a month or so on AI. But the two things that are eating our electrical system alive in the US, Bitcoin and AI. We don't have enough power to do those. We don't have enough power in our system to power them. This is a Bitcoin mining operation. That's what they call that. See that building and that computer setup there? That's a Bitcoin mining operation. And to mine Bitcoins, you have to solve super complex mathematical problems. And when you solve one, you get a fraction of a Bitcoin. And you put those together, and at the end of the day, maybe you got 1 Bitcoin out of that facility. At the end of that day, maybe you got 1 Bitcoin. There's a total of 21 million Bitcoins possible in the total universe, and the number available each year goes down more than you ever wanted to know. It kind of got to be known better about 2016, 17. It turned into almost a real thing. Read the bottom line there. I think today it's like 64,000. I didn't check it this morning, but it's right around 64, 63, 64. It goes like this. I mean, it slams up and down and up and down. But at $70,000 and you're doing 1 a day, that's pretty good. That's pretty good for solving electronic, mathematical equations. What's the dilemma with Bitcoin? Can you buy Bitcoins? Can you buy a Bitcoin? Well, if you had 73,900. There you go. See, very close to 64,000. And can you buy one of those today? Absolutely. Can you buy 1/10 of one? Yes. How about 1/1,000,000th? Yes. There are places out there. You can buy them on what? PayPal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. PayPal's got a whole separate link. Boom. Buy Bitcoins. And they got a whole thing set up on their website to buy Bitcoins. And yes.
The value of Bitcoin, what you may also pay for it. Is that correct?
What, say that again?
There's no value.
Nothing has any value. How have you been awake in this whole? There's nothing that we're talking about that has any value in its own right. If you think it's like buying, a porcelain cat. If you think that porcelain cat's worth $1,000, what's it worth? $1,000. Same thing with a Bitcoin. If you think it's worth that, then for you, it's worth that much. when you get ready to sell it, is it going to be worth that much? Yeah, you got to. I used to collect antique clocks when I lived in Germany, and I had at one time we had 40 clocks on our wall on the things. That was money. That was a lot of money. But when you buy and sell anything like that, including Bitcoins or anything else, I call it the bigger sucker theory. You have got to find a bigger sucker than you to get rid of that stuff. Because when it gets time to get rid of it, it's the only way that that's going to happen. And I call that the bigger sucker theory. So, and I would put Bitcoin in that category kind of. And the reason I would now, and I see we're all sitting around and I would say, I'm guessing here, 90% of us are pretty skeptical of Bitcoin and its use of any as a currency and things. I would say, yeah, I don't really think that's a good idea. But who knows 40 years from now whether that's going to be the case or not. Now, is Bitcoin money? Okay, we got yes, no, yes, no. Okay, why yes? Yeah, so the credit card is money. But how much money, if you got 6,000 Bitcoins on your credit card, how much is that going to be worth next Wednesday? No idea. So therefore, is it money? No. No, because it's going up and down and sideways, and it's no guarantee tomorrow. Remember we talked about today, tomorrow, and next year, is it going to be worth what you thought it was going to be worth? Well, you can't say that about Bitcoin or stocks. Are stocks money? No, because you can't say that. Remember, to be money, you have to have confidence that it's going to be good today, tomorrow, and next year, and it's going to have the same value that you had in it in the thing. Now, we had talk inflation and it's a whole different kettle of fish, but the money is still price mark on the thing, you're getting your dollars worth. So that's the thing. No, it's not money, it's a commodity. It's a thing you can buy that's worth so much right now and may not be worth anything. It's fluctuated $30,000 in a day. Yeah, I mean, good luck with that. That's pretty exciting, unless you're on the right end of that, and we're going to talk about that too. Oop, wait a minute, I forgot something. Where is it? Lost it. Oh, what did I do? Delete a chart here?
Your favorite photos.
Yeah, it's gone. Look at that. Oh, there it is. I didn't talk about this when we were here, but we should talk about it now. The one in the lower left. This is why, part of the reason why in 1929, the whole thing fell apart. Because people were doing futures and there was no regulation. Now, there are two types of futures. The long position, which is what we would call the normal position. In other words, you buy a stock and you think that a year from now it's going to be worth more. That's why you're buying it. So you're going to buy it now, and if you plan on selling it, you're going to sell it a year later, it's going to be worth more. But you can trade short, right? You can trade short. So how do you trade short? You say, I will sell you X amount, I will sell you this stock at a future date, and you pick the date. And you think the stock's going to go down, right? You're betting that the stock is going to go down. So you're going to bet that if you sell the stock now, which you don't own, right? You do not own the stock, but you can do a future. You can sell a stock you don't own. Now, how cool is that? That's a great idea. You can sell a stock you don't own now, get the money, then buy it back later at a lower price and make the profit. So you're betting that that company, that stock's going to go down sharply. There's all kinds of ideas about whether that's a good thing or the bad thing for the stock market and the things, because it can drive companies down. Really, if people start selling short, it's called, they start selling short, and it can drive a company right out of business. So, but I forgot to talk about that. I wanted to make sure we covered that. Okay. Oh, I talked about the Bitcoin. That thing takes 112 something trillion watt hours a year to run. That's the same, the amount of in the US, the amount of power used by Bitcoin mining operations is the same as the country of the Netherlands uses in a year. That's what we're using to do Bitcoins right now in the US. AI will double that in the thing, because every AI facility makes this thing look like a garden. They are huge. The amount of computers and things it takes to power AI. People don't know about that. They don't know it takes these farms of computers to do that computation. And the biggest thing is there's no power to do it.
Talking about the
Electric power, electricity. Yes, sorry, I didn't make that clear. Yeah, our whole power grid cannot support. I used to live a few years, 20 years ago now, in a place called Harrison, Arkansas, about the size of Alpena, Northwest Arkansas. They had a company that was going to come in. They had signed a contract with them to give them the land right outside town to build the bit mining facility on town the size of Alpena. 4 months into the deal, they bailed out because they got the real idea how much power this thing was going to take from the local area, and their whole area, they couldn't support it. The town wouldn't have power on the things. And so they bailed out of the contract. Fortunately, they recognized this soon enough to realize what happened. Yeah.
Then, it means artificial intelligence, but before you own that company.
Well, there's 3 or 4 people out there. There is no AI company. It's a function of companies, of various companies. Google has a huge AI section. Apple has a huge AI section on the thing. And it is without a doubt the future of computing. There's no question about it. But most people don't know the practical everyday costs of doing it, which is these computer farms that are going to have to go in to support that. Yeah, Dick. Yeah, I saw the same thing the other day. Did everybody hear that? That Microsoft is negotiating to reopen 3 Mile Island. And they're not the only ones looking at nuclear power plants. Yeah, it was really stupid to close them. That's another whole topic. It's another whole topic, but it was a really stupid thing to close them. There's kind of like Yahoo. They were the safest things in the world. And
Like programmers.
no. AI is really all about computer learning, about the computer learning about things. And so the reason it takes these huge facilities and farms is that the data required, they are buying genealogical data, they are buying real estate data, these companies that have AI things, and they're loading all that stuff, every piece of data they can, into their system to make these computers work like people. So that inside their heads, these AI facilities, they have access to data that nobody has access to. And then they can consolidate, they can process so much stuff in any microsecond that it's unbelievable. Now, is AI a good thing or not? Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm going to do a whole talk on that, but I think overall it's a good thing. But it's also got a lot of crap hanging on the edges that we all need to know about. And do we all use AI now? Every one of us, every single day, 100. Yeah, well, you don't know it. You have no idea. You know, we have no idea that we're even using it. You know, how do you run stoplights? You know, they've got every year they upgrade those things because they have computers that are learning more data. They put in a new box, boom, changes. The weather, your weather report. How much of your weather reports that we get and see and do every day are generated by AI? Almost all of it. Yeah, probably not 100%, but approaching it. It's very close to the edge of everything that you see there is generated by AI on the weather. Are the weather reports basically good? I mean, as far as accuracy and this and that. Oh man, they are awesome as long as you're within a couple days. You know, you can't get out. I mean, you can't get out 5 days and have an accurate forecast. That's not happening. You know, but 2 days, they're pretty much spot on now. You know, so that's 100% AI.
I mean, really.
They warned them. Yeah, the only thing you can't know, like this hurricane, it wasn't really the hurricane that's doing the damage. It's all the ancillary storms and things because of the hurricane and the size. It was, in that sense, it was the hurricane. It wasn't the power of the hurricane. It was the size where those arms reach so far inland. I mean, when you get 20 inches of rain in 2 days, nobody makes it through that. You know, I was in Udon, Thailand, and during the Vietnam War, we got 30 inches of rain in 4 days. There. The whole town was underwater, 20 feet. 20. Oh, our runway was more than half underwater, and we were still using it. That's exciting. So that's exciting. So here we go. What's the future of money? And what's the ideal? And there's a lot of talk about going to a cashless society. Anybody ever heard it talk about that? Yeah, some of you may have. It comes up all the time about that. Odds of it happening in our lifetime? Not very much. In the far term, 100%. 100%. That's my guess. It's just too good to not do it that way. Now, if you look in this chart on the right there, transition to a cashless society, what you want to look is at the bottom of the chart. Those are the countries that are the most cashless right now. South Korea, 16% of their transactions have anything to do with cash. 16%. All the rest is some other form of payment. Sweden, 20%. US, 32%. That's not very high. 30% of our transactions, total number of transactions, have to do with cash. So 70, in a year or two, it'll be 75%. Why is Spain and Italy and the whole southern part of Europe so high? Tradition. Tradition. And what's another word for a tradition? Inertia. Inertia. You know, I've got that word later on in here, I think. If I don't, I should. It's there's nothing in the world that's harder to change than what? Inertia. And inertia means I am not moving. That's inertia. And that's my guess. I didn't ever see that written down, Ron, but I'm guessing that that's the thing. Here's one of the biggest reasons to go cashless, or at least to change how we do things. We have $5 trillion in cash in circulation. And we use not even 1 trillion. So where's the other $4 trillion of cash? It's in big piles like that picture at the upper left. Who are the number one users of currency, $100 bills in the world? Crooks, drug cartels, anybody that wants to launder money. How many people heard that term, right? Laundering money. Here's your thing. $2 trillion of cash is laundered every year. 2 trillion. That's a lot of money laundered. Can only be laundered if there is what? Cash. And so one of the things that's come up here is the things to go is let's do away with our $100 bills. Let's do away with our $100 bills. If we want to buy something for $2,000, we can do that with 20s. That's not too harsh of a penalty to pay some, if you want to pay something $2,000 in cash. If we get rid of our $100 bills as legal tender, what happens? This whole problem goes away. How easy is it to launder electronic money? Can't do it. It's almost impossible. Yeah, they're screwed. So that's one of the big pushes. How about this? That's 1 year's worth of confiscations in Mexico. $240 million in that room in $100 bills. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Keep small bills and coins. You can't hide electronic transactions. We had a bill here, you see it on here in 2021 that says, oh, you can't do that. Everybody's got to accept cash, and it failed. It didn't pass. So I'm sure that'll come up again. Once again, in the near term, I don't think anything's going to happen. But in the far, we're going to keep inching that way. Percentage is going to go down and down and down of cash transactions. Yo.
Change the money, have the $100 bill, take payback, have a plastic money, get a can or something. Everybody had to turn their money in to get the money.
Yeah, they'd still figure out a way to do it. I mean, they really would. Yeah, there's really no reason to have $100 bills. In today's, they found out, for instance, when we went to things like Venmo and PayPal and Zelle and these things, and the similar things, not the same things, they opened in Africa. People with no money. But they could use those because if they had $10, they could put it on their phone. And then they could go somewhere, and in 2 years, it just blew up their marketing process in a good way because they could do that. So the positive side of electronic things, and when I used to go, when I lived in China, I would go to Mongolia and try to buy stuff in the market. If you're going to buy a $20 thing, they wanted a $100 bill. They'd give you money back, but they wanted a $100 bill because that's where they kept their money. If you were from Mongolia, you kept your money in a pile of $100 bills in your house. You didn't use a Mongolian bank, and you didn't use the tigrit or, the Mongolian currency. You used $100 bills. And so your entire life savings, and there's still a lot of countries like that, where their entire life savings is in $100 bills out there.
That's why the electronic system of money, where would we be?
We'd have new money tomorrow. It's just about impossible to do. I mean, you have to realize how complicated these systems are and how many nodes there are, and where do you get into to do something? Is it possible that somebody can write a virus worm that could go in, like 12,000 novels have been written about this, goes in and destroys this computer thing? Well, how many times has that ever happened in real life? Zero. Nobody goes in and destroys those. It's just too hard to do. That doesn't mean it's not that we shouldn't be concerned about it, but hopefully you have as, you know, the equal number of people trying to keep everybody out as they have trying to get in on to do that. And you have checks and balances and all these things, but it doesn't matter because it all boils down to trust. So if they did that and we trusted the government to set that back up tomorrow, what would the effect be of shutting it down? Zero. Because we trust that to come back and to be that they've got a method, they've put a storage, they've saved everything, and they can come back in tomorrow and go boom. And away we go. So that's the thing. Okay, in the short, here's my word. In the short run, inertia will win. So are the dock workers going to win? Yep, they're going to win. Absolutely. They're going to win because it'd be too painful in the short run to allow them to not win. So they're going to win. There's really no dangerous in the short run of going cashless. In the long run, I say 100% chance of things. New types of money are going to come up every day. You're going to see stuff and scams and things for people proposing things. But money is only money if you trust it. That's the only way you can possibly have money. Question. Yo.
With all the piggy banks that we have in our.
Yeah, that's another thing. And I mean, think about pennies. You know how many pennies are in circulation? About 4 trillion. You know how many pennies are actually in circulation? 4. Because they're all in piggy banks or in the, you know, the front cup holders of your car or, you know, in a plastic bag on your bedside or somewhere. Yeah, I mean, you know, and so, but we can't make we've tried to get rid of the penny for 50 years. And, you know, and yeah.
My age of trusting all this, doing like they take everything online, but we do all that, but still, it's not quite there yet. I think it's got a ways to go.
Yeah, that's the inertia. No, I mean, it's not a bad thing. No, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's why these things take years and years and years. And so by the time the only way cashless becomes cashless is when everybody agrees that that's a good thing. Or the minority is so small as to be able to be flicked away.
All the boomers have to die.
Yeah, that's true. That's inertia. That's inertia. Any other questions or anything? All right.
Have we covered with that? We still haven't figured out.
Maybe you put on.
How many people are hanging in our yard?
Well, black boards is amazing. I learned an awful lot today. Thank you.
Yeah. It's you know, and this all, honest to gosh, this all came to me. I was just sitting here looking at a dollar bill saying, I think it's really stupid that we have something like this. I'm sitting here and I can go out and buy something with this. You know what? Why? Why does that? That's where this whole thing. Question was and we alluded to this a little, is there's out there, Bitcoin just happens to be the biggest and the most well-known of these, and it's a cryptocurrency, and they are not all cryptocurrencies. There's other kinds of electronic currencies. They just happens to be a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. And there's Ethereum, and there's several other pretty big ones. Why are they these other ones, and why would anybody think we need all these things? Well, it goes back to the banking systems before central banks. And because right now, they're not regulated very well at all, electronic and cryptocurrencies and all these things. And so you have all these individual banks making their own currencies. Why? Because they now get to make that money on that currency only, and nobody else gets to. And so these other companies are hoping they can get enough buyers involved in the things that they got this thing at $9 and it goes to $11. And they're out. And that currency now is worth what? And so I think you're going to see that in a lot of these other currencies. People are just trying to make a buck on all of the hype over electronic currencies. And they will, because, they'll have the Detroit Lions Bitcoin, currency. So all the Lion fans will pile on and buy some, right? And somebody comes up with that idea that does it, and it's a collectible. And it's like, plates and Hummels and all these other.
Big concerns of our younger generation is the debt. That's, the way our national debt is. They feel they'll never get out from under it.
Well, they probably won't, but that's another 4-day conversation. Yeah, talking about the national debt is a 4-day conversation. It is the national debt, but in a lot of ways, it's who cares? Who cares? Yeah, who cares? Who's going to call it? Who's going to call the debt? And if they call the debt, then what do? If they call the debt, what do? You pay them. Yeah. If they call the debt, you pay them. But no, we're not going to print any money. We're going to do exactly what you're saying. We're going to go in here and we're going to increase our account from 4 trillion to 18 trillion. And then we're going to give it to them. And they're going to say, what? This stuff's not worth crap. Well, you wanted your money. You want it? Here it is. There's really no reason ever for the people who have our debt to call it. Because the problem is the interest on the debt. It's not the debt that's the problem. It's because they're not going to call the debt. But the interest on the debt is a problem. And so we don't have 4 hours. So,